There can be no reasoning, no negotiation with this brand of evil. The only language understood by killers like this is the language of force. So the United States of America will work with a broad coalition to dismantle this network of death. Ambitious reductions in our carbon emissions.
President Obama told world leaders today that the U.S. will degrade and ultimately destroy ISIS. Obama's tough language at the United Nations comes as the U.S. launched airstrikes this week against ISIS headquarters and training camps in Syria. Here with me to talk about the ISIS threat are Avi Spiegel, Assistant Professor of Political Science and International Relations at the University of San Diego, and Hanif Mohabi, Executive Director of the San Diego chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations. Professor Spiegel, you heard the president. He said that force is the only language that ISIS understands. But can bombs alone wipe out ISIS, or is a political solution required?
Great question. And the fact is, the first question is what kinds of bombs? Now, right now, the president's talking about degrading and ultimately destroying ISIS, as you said. But the rhetoric is about destroying ISIS, and the action is about degrading ISIS. An air campaign alone will not destroy ISIS. ISIS isn't a guerrilla group, a terrorist group. They will go underground, they will move around, and an air campaign alone will not do that.
So are you saying ground troops are necessary?
If you want to defeat ISIS, ground troops will be necessary, absolutely.
And what about a political solution?
A political solution is incredibly important, because terrorist organizations need security vacuums to thrive, but they also need political vacuums to thrive. And unless there's a comprehensive political solution in Iraq and in Syria and in other places like Yemen and Algeria and Libya, these groups will continue to thrive.
Okay, we have another soundbite from the president.
Now, ultimately, the task of rejecting sectarianism and rejecting extremism is a generational task, and a task for the people of the Middle East themselves. No external power can bring about a transformation of hearts and minds.
So, Hanif, you heard what the president said, but in Iraq, many of the Sunnis who have joined ISIS are disaffected, unemployed, and they believe that they have been persecuted under the Shiite-dominated regime. Given those feelings, how do you get a local solution?
The local solution has to be comprehensive. It cannot be one-sided. It cannot be through essentially, this is your problem, take care of it kind of a deal. As you mentioned, in Iraq, you have Sunnis that are being killed both by ISIS and the government. We need to go back and fix our counterproductive policies in regards to Iraq, and as well as the region itself, Syria and any other countries, in order for us to have a good solution for the future.
Avi, friends of the U.S. in the Middle East, with the exception of Israel, are dictatorships who have not treated their people very well. So with that, how does the U.S. even begin to win the hearts and minds of potential recruits to ISIS?
Absolutely. Now, in 2011, something happened called the Arab Spring, when young people stood up and marched peacefully to unseat themselves from the throes of authoritarianism. Now, we're 4 years later, almost, and 21 of the 22 countries of the Arab League are worse off. Now, this call for democracy, this call for political freedom has not been answered. And in many cases, it's been backpedaled. And the United States, again, we're in the position, as we were, it's almost like deja vu, almost like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, where we're aligning ourselves with the authoritarian leaders who are more popular in the United States than in their own countries.
I want to ask you a quick question. The U.S. wants UN member states to adopt a resolution that would allow them to prosecute people who leave their home country to join terrorist groups. How effective is that as a deterrent?
Well, this is the problem, is that there's a security problem and a political problem. So the United States has been continually short-sighted in this. So we've highlighted the security problem. Take the case of Yemen. We've followed a complete counterterrorism strategy there. But we've lost sight of the political problems there, and people are disenfranchised. And this recruitment problem is huge, because you have recruits from Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco going to these countries, but then they return.
And building on that, you know, President Obama has said in places like England, people need to offer an alternative vision to young Muslims. What does that vision look like?
The alternative is real justice, real democracy, not the democracy that potentially we like or the West likes, but the democracy that the region wants. So that's very important, because the majority of the people, whether in Syria or Iraq, they see things differently than how we view it. So this whole recruitment cannot be essentially curtailed unless we come up with a strategic and comprehensive political solution for not just one area, but the whole region.
Hanif, Avi, thanks so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.